the where loose change makes something of itself deal. Because only at McDonald's can a stop at the toll booth turn into an impromptu breakfast stop.
Welcome to McDonald's. Can I take your order?
It's hard to beat any size McCafe iced coffee for 99 cents until 11 a.m. But pairing it with the new Cheese Danish is a good way to try. Price and participation may vary, cannot be combined with any other offer.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Direct-to-Video Connoisseur Podcast. As always, it's Matt here, and I can almost say, as always, we've got Brett and Ty from Comeuppance Reviews here. Welcome back to the show, guys.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Hey, thanks again. We're back again. This is I think 50th to 100th appearance. I've lost count.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who's still counting at this point?
We're basically the co-host of your show.
Right.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
I know. I think it works out. It's just one of those things where it's like, I think one, we have our schedules line up. Like this is like the time that we record is like a perfect time for all of us. And I think that's hard in the podcasting world, I think, because everybody, between the fact that people are in so many different time zones, everybody's got full-time jobs because really, unless you're like somebody like famous, you can't make your living off of podcasting, so it's always like something we do when we're not, with work and stuff like that. And so, yeah, it's like when you find like a time zone or like a time that works for people, it's like, okay, this is perfect. Yeah. And then Ty, we're always like riffing about possible show ideas. And I think that's sort of manifest of it. Or also like the three of us, like when we do, like we'll be recording one podcast, like I might be on your show with you guys, and then we'll start, maybe in the post, like afterwards, just chatting and start coming up with other ideas. It's almost like the next show is almost being born while we're finishing the first one.
Right. So it's kind of an endless kind of thing. And I think it's fair to say we're kindred spirits when it comes to the subject matter we talk about. So it's not so much it's the scheduling. Yes, that is important. But the fact that we can talk about this almost endlessly helps. And when you make your next appearance on our show, we're going to see how far we can actually take that idea with our no subject podcast, where there is no actual main subject and we're just going to talk, and we'll see how that goes.
Well, yeah, Matt and I have a bunch of wacky ideas. I wrote them down.
And maybe they're ideas that don't quite fit in as a full idea, and I'm sure we'll, mention this on that particular episode. Yeah. But something we were just talking about before hitting record was Val Kilmer. So I don't know if you wanted to set that up at all. But
yeah, well, because I think it's the conversation that we're having. I think what you brought up, Brett, when you're talking about Hardwired and sort of just this idea of what the way people treat direct-to-video movies, where and it's funny because actually as you were talking about it, so just to kind of give everybody a sense of what we were discussing, we're saying how Brett said specifically that sometimes movie ideas, when you see them in DTV form, it's all just about making fun of the sort of the maybe the former Main Street actors who are now doing direct-to-video work, lampooning the budget and some of the sacrifices they had to make, and then not thinking like, okay, if this whole movie was done in a big budget setting with like a big name fancy director, that everybody would be talking about how great it is and celebrating it and maybe even giving it Oscar buzz or whatever. And it is kind of a thing. It's right that we, with direct-to-video stuff, that it's like, it's sort of like it's almost like a I don't want to say, like, I don't know what the term I want to use is. It's like this thing where people just love to dump on those kind of movies.
Well, yeah, if I could just repeat kind of what I was saying off air, which Ty encouraged me to kind of do that.
Go for it, man.
But basically, you know, for people that might not have seen Hardwired, it's kind of like this movie that takes place in the near future where, you know, there's an all-powerful corporation, at least one, and they have the ability to implant commercials into your brain. So, like, you can see these commercials all the time, and it's a very terrifying prospect. And Cuba Gooding Jr. is trying to, like, fight against that, and with these rebels that don't want to be controlled by this all-powerful corporation who have put ads everywhere. And I was saying that's a good idea for a movie, and if someone like Christopher Nolan had directed that, people would be saying how great it is, and it would be people's favorite movie probably, and everyone would be saying how great it is. But because it's direct-to-video, they don't quite have those big Hollywood resources, but they still have that same idea. I think it's unfair that people would give that short shrift, as they say. So that's just a point I wanted to make.
Because people don't care. Like, oh, Hardwired, I don't know, Cuba Gooding Jr. is that Blockbuster. Who cares? But it's just
right. But really, if it had the same idea, same script, but it was done with, you know, big Hollywood money with a big name director, I think then people would pay attention to it. I just don't like that, and that's why we're constantly talking about DTV and championing DTV. And Matt, you're the DTV connoisseur. I think there's a reason for all that, because they still have good ideas and good execution, you know, to the best of their ability. They are hampered somewhat by money, but I don't think that should stop anyone from checking out these movies.
Yeah, and I think too, you know, like I had Will from Exploding Helicopter on, and we talked about Ring of Fire 3, and you know, of course, there's so many goofy things in that movie, right? The fact that Don the Dragon Wilson's a doctor, and a biker gang invades the hospital, and you know, there's a motorcycle literally driving onto the hospital wing.
I'm waiting for the sentence here.
Right? Which one? The
old man with Uzi.
Oh, yes, exactly. You have an old man with an Uzi firing at Don the Dragon Wilson, who is sparring on the roof of the hospital. And after he blows up the helicopter, he just goes back and does his hospital rounds like nothing happened. You know, like I think for me, if an old man with an Uzi and a helicopter was firing at me, and I had to, you know, shoot the helicopter and blow it up, I'd probably take the day off, right? Like I'd probably need maybe even more, maybe need a week of like kind of personal, you know, to get over all of that.
It's a personal time, right?
Well, yeah, well, that just shows what a tough guy Don the Dragon is, and yeah.
But it's like you have all this goofiness in that movie, and then Will pointed out, which I you know, of course, I missed because I'm, you know, focused on more of the goofy. But he pointed out there's that scene where Michael Jai White and Marcus Aurelius are breaking into the sort of the mafia-owned factory or whatever, and they're trying to get into this safe, and that's when they end up stealing the MacGuffin, right? The 3.5 floppy disk. But he was noticing that scene was very much like Martin Scorsese's, you know, like in the Goodfellas, you know, where they go through the restaurant to get into the Copacabana, and it's sort of that one shot, you know, handy cam kind of just, you know, following. And he's like, you know, had that been Martin Scorsese in a Martin Scorsese movie, people would be talking about it all the time. They would just be putting the scene together. But, you know, because it's in a direct-to-video movie, it's, you know, I can't remember who even directed that one, if it was Pepin or Merhi. The other one was probably the cinematographer. But, you know, we just look at the two of them and think like, okay, they're just making, you know, direct-to-video action schlock to flood video stores and HBO and all of that stuff. But there was some you know, the talent that they had there just to frame their scenes and shoot their scenes gets lost, right? And if it was like a big time director who was doing some of the stuff that they were doing, people would be like, you know, they'd be like in montages of clips of talking about movies, right? That, you know, like, look at this scene of this one shot scene with the handycam as they're breaking into this factory to steal the MacGuffin. You know, but because it's direct to video and it's PM Entertainment, people are just like, okay, where are the exploding helicopters? That's what I want to get to.
No one cares about the craft.
Right.
Well, yeah. Well, I think because this was a training ground for a lot of people. Like, say you just went to film school or just got out of film school and you're young, you have something to prove. And so I think the DTV producers are more willing to give people like that a chance. So, and those young people are filled with ideas and energy, and that comes across in these DTV movies. And So that's the first point I wanted to make. Second point is The Old Man and the Uzi was my favorite bedtime story as a child. So I just wanted to come back to that.
So, yeah, it wouldn't have been as traumatic for you, for sure. I mean, yeah, I think we forget something. I think it's easy to lampoon. I think one of the things too, when it comes to direct-to-video versus like, mainstream, is that we grew up with this idea of movies, where we grew up kind of, growing up in like kind of the 80s and 90s, you grew up with this tradition of the 70s where it was all this really director-driven auteur kind of film with, Scorsese, Spielberg, Lucas, and
right, the film school generation, as they're called,
yeah.
Coppola and even John Carpenter to a certain extent,
Yeah, that crew. And then we get like the echo effect in the 90s, right, of this huge indie film movement where you've got Tarantino and Kevin Smith and all kinds of names like that. Even you could say like a Todd Solondz or somebody like that. But they're just these very like director-driven pieces. And I think we forget sometimes that in the world of direct-to-video, they're very seldom director-driven, right? They're usually like producer-driven, studio-driven. This is what the movie needs to be. And the director is more just a professional in addition to the
gun
actors.
for hire.
Right, exactly, like a Fred Olen Ray or somebody like that, and they're there doing the movie the way that the producer wants them to do it. It's not their, it's not like Ring of Fire 3 wasn't somebody's grand vision of like, like let's.
I disagree.
Right.
Well, it's what they call the auteur theory, where a director has like a whole overarching vision throughout their entire filmography. Yeah, you're right. You don't typically see that in DTV. Even though there are some newer people I could think of, like Jesse V. Johnson, he's out there today making direct-to-video movies as a solid director with his own style. So I think to a certain extent that might be coming back to DTV, but I get your point. You're right. There isn't like, who's the big DTV director whose vision goes across 10 movies or more of, like David Lynch. A David Lynch movie in about 5 seconds, because he has a very recognizable style. Is there someone in the DTV world that you can do that with? I don't know. Maybe you guys can think of some examples.
Maybe there's Isaac Florentine with his whooshes and flooches or noises.
Yeah, that's true. Florentine. Yeah, you could say that.
But I think that idea too, that let's take like Keone Waxman, for example. Keone Waxman doesn't have the like when he makes a movie with Seagal, it's Seagal is kind of has his input on what the movie's supposed to be. The producer is saying what the movie needs to be. The studio is telling the line producer what the budget has to be. And so it's like, but I think the problem is that when we watch a Seagal movie that's directed by Keone Waxman, or even like a Jesse V. Johnson, or any of those kind of movies, we're watching it with this frame of the auteur director in our minds. Like that's the way we were sort of raised to see movies, is that, and so having to sort of divorce ourselves from that and be like, no, you know what, like this director, like for example Keone Waxman, he's working under a set of like circumstances that he has to make his movie. And so when we get little touches or something like that, or when he tries to do something, we can gotta celebrate and be like, hey, he was trying to do something. But then I think we always have this mindset where we want to blame the director, right? It's the director's fault for screwing this thing up. Whereas like, now we kind of realize with DTV that there's so many different reasons that a movie could go bad, because there's so many people that are influencing getting this thing out to market.
Oh, that's true for Hollywood movies as well, because films always are collaborative art. I mean, you see the credits. I mean, tons of people work on movies. And yeah, you're right. Usually the director gets the credit or the blame, but there's so many people working on the movies. But yeah, if you showed someone or me like a clip of a DVD with 10 different scenes from DTV movies, and you told me to pick out which one was directed by Keone Waxman, I don't think I could do it. Maybe you guys could, but also, you were talking about how it's a producer kind of driven system. It's also a star system as well, because, if Scott Adkins is in a movie, we're probably going to watch it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too with Seagal, right? It's like that's probably, if you were trying to guess if it was Keone Waxman, you'd probably like just, the ones that have Seagal, you might have maybe a 1 in 3 chance of getting it correct. It'd be like doing multiple choice, right? And choosing C every time. And
right. Always a reliable thing to do in school. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Kids out there, we're not telling you how you should take your test. We're just saying, if when in doubt, choose C.
When in doubt, choose C. Yep.
Right. Or when in doubt, choose Seagal.
Yeah. Choose Seagal. Exactly.
That's right. Yeah. Choose Seagal at your local Redbox.
Yeah, exactly. But like that's the thing, right? Seagal, like somebody was saying, I think when I posted the General Commander post last week, I think somebody was
title that
responding.
is.
Yeah.
I don't think he has 2 jobs. It's just like general and the commander.
Well, I think in the movie Commander, that we all love and enjoy with Craig Allen, doesn't he have 2 jobs?
I think he's a lieutenant and a commander.
Or yeah, he's like his name is Commander, but he's also like Captain Commander or something like that.
Commander.
Yeah,
you gotta
it's
watch.
really funny. Yeah,
People haven't seen that.
You gotta see it.
It's also called The Last American Soldier. I think our buddy JCT uploaded it like a couple years ago.
Oh, yes, no, I do know that one. Yes.
If you love explosions, and who doesn't? I mean, it's like it's insane. And he does something really crazy in it. I won't even give it. I can't give it away.
Yeah.
It's like,
but it's definitely recommended. And wasn't it on Amazon Prime also not that long ago?
It was. Yeah, it's on Prime. It might still be on Prime. I can check that, or I know it's on YouTube.
Yeah, if it's on YouTube, JCT does some really fantastic work. People out there that are looking to kind of get into that like lower tier of DTV stuff that we tend to review on our sites, JCT has a lot of it. He has a lot of those sort of like Japanese VHS rips. You know, he just I think he gets them probably from different like torrenting sites. So I don't think it's like his collection of movies. I think he gets them on the torrenting sites and then he uploads them. We're calling him a he. We don't even know if we don't even know.
That's true. Could be a robot.
He could be a total robot.
Right.
I am not a robot. We do CAPTCHA. Whatever it is, CAPTCHA.
Right.
I am not a robot.
Yeah, it says you.
Right, we don't know.
How do they
We
know?
don't know,
I could be very sophisticated.
Yeah, it could be like Mr. Roboto. You know, I don't know.
And also, there's that other great guy on YouTube who might or may not be a guy. It's called Master Lay's Movie Dojo.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yes, another great one. Yeah.
He has some good AIP stuff. Which your lower tier comment is a really good segue into what we're talking about today.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Why don't we'll kind of put a bow on the previous.
I don't mean because I just.
But
we
no,
can talk about this stuff. I just wanted to, you know.
No, I was thinking about the same thing because we're kind of doing the no topic podcast without even realizing. Yeah. I mean, I think as we talk about, and I think maybe as we talk about these guys here too that we're going to be talking about, I think it kind of brings it back. Thinking about Seagal and that person who was responding about the tweet, and me kind of like saying like, I think Seagal's approach is to say, go to a producer and say, I want to make another movie. And then it's like, okay, well, what scripts do we have? And then it's like having to make it in the Seagal way, right? Like, so Seagal can't lose, right? Seagal has to be the girl. He has
take 2 punches maybe.
Right, exactly. Even if he takes a punch, right? He almost never takes. I remember there was a movie that had Byron Mann in it, where Byron Mann was the baddie, and I was so excited watching that movie. I can't remember which one it was.
Was it Belly of the Beast?
I think you're right. I think that's the one. Yeah, and I remember
Insert fat joke for Seagal here.
Well, I think that's when the DVD companies were actually subtly mocking him, like when Belly of the Beast, Shadow Man, and
Out of Reach.
They're making these subtle little allusions to his weight issues in the titles.
Yeah, but
especially Out of Reach. Come on.
Yeah, right. The sequel was going to be Mini Fridge next to the couch, right?
Right.
Above the fridge, I guess.
Yeah, above the fridge. Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, I think like Byron Mann. I remember that when I was like, oh, Seagal and Byron Mann are going to have a fight scene at the end. It's going to be great. No, Byron Mann didn't get a punch on him the whole time. It was just Seagal destroying him in the fight. And I guess if you're Byron Mann, you're just you're looking for the be in the movie and you're okay with that part. But
I think, yeah, because I cut you off before about your General Commander. You said that you watched it and then could I just cut you off now? But
no, we're good. No, because that was that person when I posted it. It got some responses on Twitter. People were talking about like, oh, is this movie good, or what's I was kind of explaining like it's more like for Seagal completists, right? It's like if you really need to see every Seagal movie, put yourself through it. But there's a lot of nothing that happens in that one. And they were kind of talking about, I think a couple of people were in the thread talking about Seagal's movies and, kind of the way that they've gone. But a big part of the reason why Seagal's movies are the way they are is because Seagal demands them to be a certain way. Otherwise, he won't do them. And so, again, if you're Keone Waxman, you watch the movie, and with our director-driven mindset, we say, oh, these are his decisions. And it's like, no, they're Seagal's decisions. He's just trying to make the best that he can and making the movie.
Right.
to placate Seagal.
Well,
Yeah, I see what you're saying. He's kind of struggling against the tide there somewhat, but it's funny because what you said, he always has to win. Beyond that, his opponent can't even get a hit in on him. So forget losing the fight. Like if he takes one punch, it would be amazing.
Right.
Well, I think he took a punch in Cartels, right? Maybe, or maybe it was a stunt double.
We were shocked. We were watching Cartels. Like, he took a punch. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I mean, in China Salesman, his stunt double gets beaten up by Mike Tyson. So there's that.
Well, but they couldn't get around that. They couldn't have a situation where Mike Tyson gets no punches on Seagal. That just because as a viewer, see, that's the thing. If someone, no matter who it is, but especially if it's Seagal, and whereas the viewers are watching it looking for a good fight, we're sitting there going, this just isn't ringing true. I mean, I think. In real life, if Byron Mann and Seagal had a fight, Byron Mann would be getting tons of hits on him. Right. So if we're sitting there watching this as viewers, we're going, this isn't really ringing true. You know what I mean?
Well, and it's almost like, why have Byron Mann in that part if he's not going to show his martial arts prowess too?
Exactly.
It's like, what's the point?
And I rewatched Absolution. I can't, and I know we didn't like it on our site, but I think I'll give it one more chance because it was at the library.
Very educational.
Yeah, they don't have books anymore. It's just straight to video Seagal movies.
And video games.
And video games. Yeah, they have like Xbox One or all the hot hits. And it wasn't Byron Mann has a fight scene not with Seagal because they're buddies in this one. Yeah. He was a fight scene with some like meathead guy, but it was like, it was good. It was well done. It was Byron Mann and meathead guy.
Right.
but Seagal,
so Seagal's not a factor, so the fight was better.
Yeah, the Seagal and Vinnie Jones fight was ridiculous. Vinnie Jones got no hits in it at all, none.
Right.
It's like,
which I feel like in real life, if they got into a fight, Vinnie Jones would just headbutt him until like his skull caved in because that's what would really happen.
Or he could pull off his goatee or something. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, he'd do some dirty trick. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's another one of those types that we think about with the Keone Waxman Seagal films, where it's like Seagal is in the movie and he sits for most of the movie, and then somebody like Byron Mann or Bren Foster or somebody like that is doing all the heavy lifting in the other scenes.
You can't help but laugh at that, though. It's like oh right, Seagal's in there. Oh yeah.
Now, what's funny about that is Seagal is not a young man anymore.
No, unfortunately not.
He'll be 70 this year. I think.
Right.
69.
Oh.
Yeah, so I mean, it kind of makes sense that he might have more of a sit-down role, but they kind of want it both ways because then a lot of these movies have an intro where he's quote unquote in the field with all these young guys. They're like, it's like a bunch of 20-year-olds like doing some raid on a compound, and Seagal's in there too. It's like, which do you want? Do you want him to be kind of in there with the young guys, or do you want him to be kind of riding out his career doing a sit-down role? Like, which one do you want?
Yeah,
because I think we want both as an audience.
Well, I mean, how old was Bronson in Death Wish 5? I think he was like 73. So, that's maybe the number, right? If we get to, if he gets to 73, maybe that's the point where, okay, that's it. But I think he also didn't he do like some like TV movies?
Yeah, Family Cops. Yeah, Family Cops
right.
1, 2, and 3.
But what's interesting, though, is they kind of worked around his age as far as Death Wish 5 because he just had to get more inventive. Like, instead of running around, he just had to come up with, an exploding soccer ball, evil linguini, something like that. So it's not all about the physicality. It's more about the ingenious inventions. So they should do something like that with Seagal, where he's maybe killing people by remote control or something, which might be out of reach. I mean, who knows?
Well, what'd you say, Brett?
Oh, about how he might be if he's killing people by remote control, they might be out of reach because we all hate when that happens.
Oh, I get it. Because he kills someone by his TV remote control because he's trying to watch, TV.
Well, I was thinking maybe some sort of special remote that can kill people or, kind of like in the one we just watched where the guy's a drone expert and there's like a lot of footage of drones.
Contract to Kill.
Yeah, Contract to Kill. Found that at the old Goodwill for $2.
Yeah.
It's like they spent a lot of time in that movie with drones as if that was like a really, really awesome hot thing that an audience would be really impressed by. It's like it's a guy with a remote control flying an airplane. Like, why is it? Why? I'm not very thrilled by this. I mean, I don't mean to sound jaded or anything, but you're gonna have to do a little bit better. It's like some kid with like a remote control boat going yippee yippee, and he's like doing it like, oh, I don't care. I mean, why? This is exciting.
Yeah.
He's flying a kite basically.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's I just saw that one recently myself, and that was a lot of Seagal sit down. That was I mean, you know, the one technique they used, which was really great, was Seagal driving. So you just put him in a set where he's got a steering wheel in front of him, and he's sitting for however long talking on a phone.
Yeah, that's kind of a workaround for them because he's still sitting,
right?
But also, you know, you can see some. I don't know if you call it a green screen or a blue screen or some sort of screen, but that's kind of what we're seeing. I mean, also in that movie that was shot in Connecticut, Pistol Whipped, I mean, maybe it's because we're from here, but that was really obvious of the sort of car chase backdrop that they were using in that film.
I think also, what's the one? Was it an Attack Force or? Oh no, maybe it was Attack Force, but it was really bad. Like Shadow Man.
Yeah.
Where they zoomed out him trying to drive, but it's clearly a green screen. I think I might have showed you a video of that, Matt. Like, I still have it.
Seagal, oh, sorry. I said, isn't this a Seagal horror movie? It's called Against the Dark or something?
Yeah. I did a podcast with that with Sean Malloy, who does the Dolph Lundgren podcast, and we chatted about that one.
I haven't seen that one. I know that was hanging around at the Bee Buster. I just never caught it.
Yeah, it's one of those. He made a really great analogy.
And for our listeners, that's Blockbuster in Thai speech.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Took up the block, really.
Yeah, when he was talking about that one, he made a really great analogy. He was saying it's like you're a catering company, right? And you've got this really great spread that you're going to use for this party. Meaning like the movie, you've got this really great idea for a movie and you've got everything set. And then somebody comes to you and says, okay, now every dish you make, you need to put pineapple in that dish with the idea of being, now you've got to put Seagal in this movie. And it's actually kind of the analogy works because it's like Seagal is just in this thing and we don't really know why. It's your standard like vampire zombie kind of thing, but there's Seagal, you know. It's
Steve's kind of hanging around.
Right.
And now at this late date, he's trying to show more of his acting range, I guess.
Exactly.
That was like 10 years ago that movie came out.
Yes.
We should probably stick to that. I think we have a subject.
I know. Well, I was going to say, this may actually be a really good segue. A second good segue. But part of the reason why I came up with this idea for this subject is that it, you know, a lot. It's easy to do a Seagal episode, and I think a lot of people like they. You know, like we could do Seagal kind of every week, you know, because people, I think, they get it. They want to hear us riff on these new Seagal movies and that kind of thing, and it gets a lot of traction. But there's these other guys that have done DTV stuff that are kind of lower down the scale. The problem is that, you know, one, you don't know if you can do a full episode on their filmography because, you know, there's not a lot of movies that they've been stars in, and you know, it's that kind of thing. But also, I was thinking like it might be good for us to showcase some of these guys, and then people that are listening could maybe let us know like who they think we could try to do a full episode on, as opposed to just being like, we're going to do a full episode and then maybe it doesn't get a lot of, you know, not that downloads and listens are the most important thing, but to some extent, you want to see if the audience is interested in a topic or something. So I thought this episode of, you know, the top 5 other guys, you know, we have our list of the top 5 other guys. It could be kind of a showcase of these other guys, and maybe people could let us know some that maybe that they're fans of and they want to hear what we have to say about them, or maybe they're curious to know more. Like, oh, I'm curious about this person. Can you tell us? You know, maybe a full episode is worth it. Maybe even it's something where maybe 2 of them, you know, we could do 2 of them in an episode. Maybe we could do like a combination. But that was my idea, was to maybe like us do an episode on the other guys. And the only rule I came up with was they just have to be kind of below Gary Daniels on the
no
total
problem.
And so then it, you know, so it could be just anybody. So you know, we could have completely different lists, or we could have a lot of overlap. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how it goes.
Mine's completely kind of.
Go ahead. Sorry, Ty. Go ahead.
No. Please go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I kind of like the idea of this being almost like a testing ground. Like, say we mention one or two people, then we or you get some feedback saying, hey, could you do more about that? And then we can develop it. I do like that idea.
I have a good first one. I mean,
why don't we jump right into it?
Oh, no, all I do is cut you off today.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's all right. No.
Oh, okay, well, I'll go for it. Unless I think I was cut you off once again, so please say what you're going to say.
No, that was what I was going to say. Was we'll get right into it. We'll make it happen.
Well, I think the first one I have is, the first one I do have is Frank Zagarino. So,
excellent.
Yeah.
Now, did you listen? Did you do them in order, or you just have them?
It's kind of just a complete randomness, really.
Okay, perfect. Well, 'cause I've got Zagarino on my list too, so we can kind of combine our conversation.
Now, as out of the people we have, I do think Zagarino, I mean, people can disagree with this, but I do think might be the most worthy of a full episode on his own. Because he has a very solid DTV career, and I do think that he's worthy of further exploration. However, because he's possibly, arguably below Gary Daniels in popularity, I think he would be a good one for number 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, go ahead.
Oh, wow.
Sorry about that.
Please, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry about that.
I'm just saying, he has a handful of good movies. Of course, I haven't seen Airboss 4 yet.
Yeah.
I just want
to... And this podcast is over.
Yeah. I'm out. See ya.
Airboss 4 is a prerequisite to being on this podcast, so bye. Yeah. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Please go ahead, Matt.
No, he was on my list as well. He for me, because I ranked mine, but I think we can we don't have to necessarily go the ranking route, but for me, he's kind of like the top of the other guys, I think. And I don't know what it is that prevented him from, I mean, he did have the Project Shadow Chaser franchise, and I guess the Airboss franchise as well. So he's got these franchises, but it's like they just never quite, like, it's almost, I don't know how to describe it. Like why maybe it was the name. People didn't like the name, and they didn't feel like the name.
His name, Frank Zagarino, or the name to the movie?
His name, yeah. If people thought Zagarino wasn't a star name or something, I don't know what it was that prevented him from at least getting to the Gary Daniels level of DTV.
Well, as I've always suggested, he should have shortened his name to Frankie Zags.
Right.
But also, does he have another series? He has a product. Wait, you said Project Shadow Chaser, right?
Project Eliminator.
He has Project Eliminator, which is also one of his best, in my opinion.
Right. It's the sequel to Striker, which is another amazing Zagarino. Which we used to not really like Zagarino in the beginning because we watched The Company Man. Oh wait, what was the other title? Was it The Company Man, Brett?
The Company Man. That's the one with Robert Vaughn as Control 5.
Yeah.
Oh God. I can talk amongst yourselves. I can look that up.
Okay. Well, one of those interesting about Zagarino, a lot of his, covers of his movies, he looks kind of like Brigitte Nielsen.
Yeah.
If you look at The Protector, you look at like Alien Key or Orion's Key.
Yeah. Like
you look at Orion's Key, that's a really good example. It's like, is that Brigitte Nielsen from Galaxis, or is it Frank Zagarino?
Yeah.
Now, what do you think would happen if instead of getting with Flavor Flav, Brigitte Nielsen had a baby with Frank Zagarino?
I don't know. It would look exactly the same. It would just be like some sort of like, I don't know what kind of baby that would be.
Yeah. Now, I have to confess, so the very first Zagarino film I did for the site, I didn't really know who he was.
Mm-hmm.
And I...
What movie was that, by the way? Sorry.
I should have forgot that.
Never Say Die. I reviewed it on April 30th, 2008. I didn't know who he was. Now, of course, this is 2008, so not as PC as we are in 2021. So I said that Never Say Die is about a man who looks like a lesbian fitness instructor from the early 90s who works as a freelance boat repairman somewhere in the Florida Keys. So obviously, one, I wouldn't be referring to anybody as a lesbian fitness instructor from the early 90s anymore, because that's not PC. But also, Zagarino is not just that, right? I mean, he's I look back on that and I think, wow, yeah. And I thought about Lucasing it, because it's like, man, how could you have been so, so off on Zagarino? And and not know, but maybe that's part of it, right? Maybe it is the it factor, is that like he just missed the it factor even to be like a Gary Daniels.
I mean, and I see what you mean by that comment, which really isn't that bad, because I think around that time, I think Susan Powder, Stop the Insanity.
Right.
Certain similarity there as well. And I believe we've mentioned her as someone who should have been an action star on our own podcast for that segment for people that might not have heard that. But so, yeah, there's definitely similarities between Bridget Nielsen and Susan Powder, especially at that time. And especially if you haven't seen his better works like Stryker and the sequel, Project Eliminator.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at his filmography now. Now, I've seen... Yeah. What was our first Zagarino, which was Deadly Reckoning, by the way, not The Company Man.
I was just going to say, I was waiting for a moment to put that in, but yeah, The Company Man's also called Deadly Reckoning.
Okay, is that book guy or
book
something?
Boy.
Book boy.
Yeah, their big insult for him is that for the bad guys is a book boy, like book boy, and I guess he's supposed to feel really like humiliated and insulted by that.
He called me a book boy today.
He's gonna mope around and maybe just lose the fights to the bad guys, but that's not to be confused with American Kickboxer 2, right, Ty? Where
right, the lady, someone calls the bookstore. She says bookstore.
Yeah, it's just a bookstore. The bookstore has no name.
He couldn't call it anything. Well, that's why, Matt, your favorite bookstore is the Romanian bookstore in any New Image movie.
That's very well shown in Acts of Vengeance with Banderas.
Yes.
I am stoic. I like bookstore. It's like...
but what's interesting about Deadly Reckoning is that it also has Matthias Hughes, who also physically quite similar to Zagarino, and Bryan Genesse or Genesse or however you say it. So it's on as Control 5.
Yeah.
So and David Shark Fralick's in the movie too. So it has a really good kind of B-movie direct-to-video cast.
Yeah, and I think you may have touched on something actually that might get to the heart of why Zagarino maybe didn't quite make it to that Gary Daniels level, is that Zagarino does kind of verge more into that Matthias Hughes like baddie territory, even if he's playing a good guy. And maybe that's the problem, is that it's we don't always want to see him as a good guy, or like you see him on the cover and you think that's the good guy. We maybe that's what it is that he's there with his flat top, and I think part of it too is he just I don't know, that might maybe that explains, even though we're looking at his IMDb bio and it's like he's got a ton of franchises, a ton of like movies with sequels that he's in, yet none of them we don't think of any of these as like big time things. They're not like the Bloodsport franchises or anything like that. They're just sort of these ones that like I guess they made one and then they had a script for something and they probably shoehorned it into the sequel or something like that.
And what's interesting...
go ahead. Please go ahead.
I was going to say, like, one of his latest projects, which actually came out in 2007, but as an actor, was, as a horror fan, it's kind of interesting. It's called Spiker. Have you guys seen that?
I see here in his bio.
Because he directed the movie, and the plot says, Spiker is a pink-eyed albino serial killer who slashes his victims with railroad spikes. And so that sounds promising.
Yeah.
And it has David Shark Fralick. This is on the cover.
Right. So that's the other thing. He does tend to reuse his buddies in these projects that he's doing. Like if you look at his other, even later day projects, he still used people like Joe Lara, Lamas, lots of other people that he probably first came in contact with during his classic DTV era. So the DTV stuff kind of continues, and I guess it shows he has some loyalty.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, I was just agreeing with Brett. Yeah.
I did notice, I was looking at Zagarino's filmography. A lot of his movies never really came out too. You got Strike Zone, The Guardian, like Never Look Back. I would like to see these movies. Maybe even Air Boss 4, The X Factor. But I'm not sure.
Have you guys seen Shattered Lies?
I've seen it. I remember nothing.
Because that also has James Russo, Martin Kove, Jack Scalia, and David Shark Fralick. And Mickey Jones.
It's gone from my memory. Have you seen that one?
I guess it wasn't that memorable.
I haven't seen that one, no.
But this cast is pretty great.
Yeah, I mean, Strike Zone. I'm on YouTube now. I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, see if Shattered Lies is around as well. But and well, we could do this all day. But The Stray, with Madsen, right?
I've seen that. I have a copy.
And Andy Everhart, because Zags is in that.
Yeah, he's Michael Madsen's partner in it. He's a cop. He's not like a meathead in it.
It was possible for him to play non-meathead roles.
Yes, right. And let's not forget about No Tomorrow, Master P. Something might happen to Mr. Zagarino in that. No spoiler.
Well, that's you're gonna wind up dead.
Yeah. Wait, that was wind up dead. That wasn't Hot Boys. What a conversation this is. So it's like
yeah. So I think Zagarino is just a real fascinating one, and maybe just the way we've been talking about it, maybe he is somebody that's worthy of a full episode. But it's a unique situation with him, right? That and like you said, Ty, the fact that he seems to have a lot of these movies that just stayed on the shelf. That whatever happens, right? Again, we talk about movies, DTV movies that kind of being beset with all these issues, and one of them is the movie sometimes just never come out.
Yeah, that's an issue.
Well, that happens to Madsen quite a bit.
Oh, that happened to Madsen. If you look at Madsen's 2000s career, there's like 10 of those that never come out. Outlaw, and there's some other one. And I want to see it was him and Madsen, him and William Forsythe.
Yeah.
I remember that. Like, when is this Outlaw coming out? Because all I did back in 2000s look at Michael Madsen's IMDb page. It's like I still do that today. But
and you probably watch more Madsen movies than almost anybody. I mean, on Letterboxd it gives you a percentage, right?
Yeah, I have to look that up.
I bet your percentage on Madsen is probably higher than just about anybody.
Because I've seen Fall, and that's
right. Yeah, Fall. Yeah, you own Fall, don't you?
I own Fall, yes. After much, I got rid of Fall. Not that exciting of a story, but I bought Fall a long time ago, and then I gave it away. But now I have it again. What a story! But it's just
but you are probably the only person in history who has bought Fall twice.
Yes,
on purpose.
It's not good.
Yeah. But it's Madsen, right? It's like when you get committed to these actors, like I the only Seagal film I haven't seen yet is End of a Gun, and I'm waiting for it to be on like either Prime or Tubi or one of those. So I'm like holding out, like I'm not gonna rent it. I'm not gonna rent it. But at some point, if they don't put it on a streaming service, I'm gonna have to rent it just because I need to see it, just to say I've seen all the Seagals. And it's like but same thing with Dolph. There's a movie. I think you found it recently, Ty.
Which one's that?
It's the one about the underground, the fighting ring for women.
Oh, Female Fight Squad.
Female Fight Squad, right? Yeah. Same thing. It's not on streaming anywhere. It's the last Dolph movie I have to watch, and I'm holding out. Like I'm remaining steadfast, and I'm not going to rent it. At some point, I'm probably going to have to if they don't put it out on anything.
You have to rent Female Fight Squad. I'm in it.
Okay, moving on. Matt, who's your number 5?
So my next one here is my next one is, or I guess on my list. We actually just mentioned him a second ago. Was Joe Lara? Yeah, and the thing with Joe Lara, I was trying to figure out whatever happened with Joe Lara, because Joe Lara did have he had I think you and when we were making our PM entertainment lists, Hologram Man is up there.
Oh yeah. Sure.
Yeah, and Joe Lara is really good as the lead in Hologram Man. You don't look at that and go, oh, they should have gotten somebody else, or he's not. He does really well there, but it just seems like it just never quite worked with him. I think of the Tarzan syndicated show. I don't know if the thing was with him is like he was the poor man's Lorenzo Lamas, and by the time he became big, or he was kind of making his way up in the 90s, Lamas at that point had fallen off. Renegade was canceled, and it's almost like Lamas became the poor man's Lorenzo Lamas, and so then it was like
sad.
Right, like why get Joe Lara when you can get Lorenzo Lamas? I think also, when you think of like I think of like a spectrum of like when it comes to guys, like you've got like sort of hard, like kind of gruff, like haggard good looks, and then you've got like model good looks. I think Lara is too far on the model side for the action star, but again, it worked in Hologram Man. So I don't know. Of course, and you talked about the fact that he does have a relationship with Zagarino, and they do.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah. So I don't know. But he's one that for me, he was kind of like my kind of the edge of my list, but as one of those other guys, because he's done some good stuff.
Well, Armstrong, that was a big Zagarino-Lara team up. But I think as far as his looks, yes, he was very well cast to be Tarzan. I could totally see him as like a Tarzan type guy.
American Cyborg, Steel Warrior.
Right. So, but what's interesting though is he could either be a good guy or a bad guy because he's played a baddie plenty of times, and I think it all depends on two different hair factors. One is if he has a beard or not, and one is if he has his hair in a ponytail or not, and in some sort of combination thereof.
Because he has a ponytail, beard, and Warhead, right? He was the villain in that.
Right. So usually, if he has the beard and a ponytail, then he's the bad guy, and if he doesn't, then he's the good guy. General rule of thumb.
And I mean, you're looking at his filmography. I mean, he has fewer films than Zagarino, but also when you look at the ones that are non-Zagarino ones, that don't have Zagarino, there's some interesting titles here, like Operation Delta Force 4: Deep Fault. That's just I don't know who maybe someone should talk to the Seagal naming people to come up with just go with your basic naming. Right, because Deep Fault just sounds, I don't know, that sounds interesting.
Well, they were going to call it My Fault, but yeah.
But yeah, I think he just there were he had the skill. Again, Hologram Man was such a good movie. I think we both had it in our top 5. I think for PM films, and yes, Evan Laurie was great in that one too, and he kind of makes it a lot of what it is, but
right, Slash.
Yeah, Slash Gallagher. Don't call him Norman. But Joe Lara was really good as the lead, and you need a good lead in a movie like that for it to work. So the potential was there for sure.
And let's not forget about Steel Frontier.
Yeah,
because he was also really good in that.
Yeah, well, that's it. He can carry the movie as the main hero. There's no question about that. He's done it numerous times and done well, I think. So. Yeah, you're right. He doesn't quite have that Gary Daniels and Up sort of popularity, but he could have. I mean, he kind of did for a while in the 90s, but
yeah. That's close. And he's another movie that never came out in the 2000s called Very Mean Men. Nice. And it's an amazing cast. Billy Drago, Martin Landau, Ben Gazzara, Scott Baio.
Wow.
That's probably why it's not out anymore, because Scott Baio's been canceled, right? So that's it.
He got canceled?
Well, I think because he's a heavy duty Trumper, so I think yeah.
Who you want to? I mean, if you like Trump, you can't cancel Charles in charge. He's in charge.
I know. I think he's one of those like goofy tweeters. Like I don't know if he's been canceled yet. I shouldn't call him canceled yet.
Okay.
I shouldn't jump the gun, but I feel like he's a goofy tweeter that may have made one of those tweets that crosses the line that
could get him canceled.
Right, like me, I probably would get canceled now for calling Zagarino looking like a lesbian fitness instructor from the early '90s. So, if you go back through my blog, I'd probably get canceled. A few things. So I get it, but like now, I wouldn't say anything like that now. I wouldn't be tweeting like that now.
Well, and also, you're not 45 and pregnant like he is. But I do think people will listen to podcasts like yours and ours and read our websites because they're looking for something politically incorrect to a certain degree. They want a refuge from all this PC nonsense. So I think that's why people come to places like this, because they want something different out of the mainstream, a little different, from your average stuff. So I think that's something people want. I could be wrong, but it served us well this far.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about a time in the 90s where, yes, there were some non-PC things that I think that's that difference, right, between PC and being offensive. And I think there's stuff from the 90s that were celebrated that was probably, offensive, that shouldn't have been celebrated. But yeah, by the same token, we make jokes, off-color jokes that I think are not meant to offend, but just having fun, just, being good.
Right, and I think people get that. I do think people understand that.
It's fun. It's casual fun.
Yeah.
And as I say, try and stop us.
Right. But we do also, the other thing too I do notice about us is that we don't tend to like do tweet rants. You know what I mean? Like
No,
like on Twitter,
I'm
it's
not
like,
sure how you even do that. I think you only have 140 characters, right? So,
I guess you could just keep going and going and going. Well, I mean, as you guys both, I don't even have a Twitter account or lots of social media accounts because I'm not interested in it. So, that's one of the reasons why. Because I don't want to, wake up at 3:00 in the morning and be faced with a Scott Baio tweet rant. I mean, that's not something I need.
right.
I think we've called him Scotland Baio for his longer name.
Oh, bid for seriousness. I think that's something we might do as a new segment.
Scott.
Yeah, Scotland Baio.
Where people, extend their names in a bid for seriousness. I think it's all starting with Charles Sheen, of course.
Mm-hmm. I think if Scott Baio was looking to reinvent himself after this, because as far as I know, I think like there was like a Happy Days reunion thing to get people to get out and vote in before the election in November, and I don't think he was included in that. So I think if he wants to rehabilitate his career, I think Scotland Baio is definitely the way to go, and maybe some real serious kind of roles that he could do.
Oh yes, that's definitely what he should do. I couldn't agree more.
A serial killer or something, or
like Charles Sheen did in Postmortem.
Yeah,
Right.
well, he wasn't a serial killer, but he was.
No, I know, but right. I'm not saying he was a serial killer. I'm saying it was a serial killer movie where Charles was trying to. I mean, granted, I think that was Albert Pine, right?
That's yes, exactly, yeah.
So I mean, how serious can you get? But I think it was like, as we said, it was a bid for seriousness.
Yeah, I tried.
Yeah.
Didn't work out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, number 4. Oh.
Yeah. So Ty, next up on your list.
Well, we have who's the person? Bryan Genesse.
Okay, well, he's on my list as well, so we can go extended conversation about him.
So, I mean, we all know Bryan Genesse from Street Justice.
Yeah.
Which is a classic. And of course, Bryan Genesse is in a movie that has not been released once again. The title now escaping me, but it stars Michael Madsen and it's directed by Bryan Genesse. Badfellas.
Mm-hmm.
So Badfellas.
Because he also did a movie called Bad Guys. So
that's it. Yeah, it's also called Bad Guys. Yeah,
Bad Guys. Okay.
I like the name Badfellas better. I think that I think they should go with that. Should this ever get a release of any kind?
Well, I've been waiting now on year 20 to see this movie. So I can wait some more, I guess.
Right.
But I mean, he was a mainstay of New Image. Like he was in a lot of New Image movies.
Live Wire 2 or Human Time Bomb.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the one where he's on a train.
Oh, Death Train.
Oh, Death Train. Oh, yeah, okay. They all start to kind of blur together for me.
Well, the thing we talked about, we were talking about Isaac Florentine a little bit ago, Cold Harvest with Gary Daniels. He plays the baddie in that, and that was a fantastic role from him there.
He did a great job.
Yeah.
I think it's one of his best.
Yeah.
And he's all over the Agent of Death, Eric Roberts and Michael Madsen. He's the bad guy in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the Street Justice part of it, that's how I came to call him Genesse. I don't know if that's really how his name's pronounced, because I only heard it as Genesse through the ads for Street Justice.
Same here.
I know now that, like, as we've been listening to trailers and things like that with the Wings Hauser, and Joy Travolta, like you can't always trust how they names
that's
are pronounced.
true. I mean, just because they're saying it that way doesn't mean that's the right way. But but as fans and people watch this stuff, we think, oh, okay, that's how you say it, and, or it can change the way you say it. Like if we were saying Wings Hauser before, maybe now we can change it to Hauser.
Right, exactly. Maybe we were saying it wrong the whole time, and that was the way to say it. But I mean, Street Justice. I think I was telling Ty, like the Friday nights when I was in like middle school, I guess, or getting into high school, like this local station in New Hampshire, WNDS. It was like very independent, and every Friday night they would have a block of Renegade and Street Justice. That was, while Street Justice was on. Yeah, and that was just always really cool to be, like, oh yeah, getting ready to watch those two movies. And you'd see the commercials during the week, like when The Simpsons would be on at like 7 or something like that. It'd be like, this Friday night, Lorenzo
tonight on Street Justice.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and it was a great combination. I remember my friend, I was doing a sleepover with a buddy, and I was like, oh, we got to watch, Renegade and Street Justice. And I remember he got the biggest kick out of the fact that Carl Weathers' character was named Boudreaux. And he just started calling everybody that as like a derisive term. Get out of here, Boudreaux, or you're a Boudreaux, or something like that. Like that was like his, just because he just thought that was hilarious that somebody would be named that.
And let's not forget his name is Grady Jameson, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think Genesse is one of those ones again that it's like, I don't know what it was. Maybe again, was he one that was considered too good looking, like Lara? Was he considered too, you can't.
Not sure.
Yeah, but he should have been. He another one that you think of. I kind of put him. He's even. I think he's closer to Zagarino than Lara when you think of like, the other guys like that second tier.
People
or that other
heard
tier.
of Bryan Genesse from Street Justice, so it's like, right, Bryan Genesse, yeah.
Well, yeah, if he wasn't on Street Justice, that would have been a problem because I think that probably got the most penetration of anything he did.
Yeah. Yeah, we'd know him from. I mean, that's the thing with Lara. I mean, yes, I loved him in Hologram Man later, down the road, but I don't think I would know Lara if it hadn't been for Conan. Which, I mean, those syndicated shows, it was like a lot of them really, and like Conan. I mean, Tarzan. I'm confusing it with Conan. Like I think it's like there's so many of these like syndicated shows out at that time. But it was just like, what else are you gonna watch at 3 a.m. on a Saturday? It's like okay, well there's this station's filling time with Tarzan. Well, I'll just see what this is about, and and watch Joe Lara run around without a shirt on, and whatever like rehashed show idea from Beastmaster or Highlander that they used.
It's all we had.
Right.
Well, yeah. And then there was Relic Hunter with Tia Carrere, and of course Xena, Hercules, and that whole lineup of shows. Perfect for Saturday afternoon.
Adventure Inc. with Michael Biehn.
Yes. Yeah, that was a great one. Was the one Mutant X where I guess they had the rights to X-Men, but they didn't have the rights to X-Men, so they called it Mutant X, and they didn't use any of the actual X-Men characters.
That's funny. Just have to kind of figure that out. Figure out the workaround.
Right.
So
let's shoot in Canada.
Right. Exactly. And call it New York.
Yeah. Well, what's your next one?
So my next. Oh wait, no. Did we do? Oh yeah, right. You just said Genesse. Okay, perfect. Yeah. And so my next one is Jerry Trimble. Yeah, and he, I wonder if he suffers from the same thing that Zagarino suffers from, where his countenance is perfect for a baddie, and maybe that's what it was. I don't know. I think of like Live by the Fist and Stranglehold as two of my favorite DTV films from the 90s, and I think they were 90s, right? I don't think they were 80s.
Yeah, they were 90s.
Yeah. And I remember Kenner was the one from Movies in the Attic who was like, you got to check out Live by the Fist, and he sent me a link to the trailer, and I was like, yeah, this is amazing. It was just like a lot of electric guitar and just like this sort of like this kind of the high octane martial arts that we take for granted now with Scott Adkins, that he does it, and it's like Trimble was doing it in those movies, just sort of like just kind of just Live by the Fist. It was like, I remember him just kind of just going, and it's like the guitar's playing and he's just like taking out 5 guys at once. And it was really great stuff. And I don't know, again, he's another one. I don't know what made it happen where he didn't, become bigger.
He was in these Corman movies for a little bit and then kind of fell off.
Jerry Pelt.
Jerry Pelt. That's a great name. Which one was that? That was Lived by the Fist?
One Man Army.
One Man Army, Jerry Pelt.
Yeah, which I guess describes his hair, right? The beaver pelt.
Yeah, exactly. So coincidence, but what's the one with the really overcrowded box art with like a million things on the box? If you look at the box art, there's like it's all the stuff's happening on the box. I think they were trying to convey that sort of high octane quality.
And as I rewatched it before I posted it on Instagram, and it's like it's not that high octane really. It's just it's such a busy cover.
Right. And the funny thing is, the cover that they have on IMDb is the I think it's the Polish version. So it's like it's exactly the same stuff, but it's just it has the title in Polish. But the other thing too is it's Jerry Golden Boy Trimble. I didn't realize that was his. Yeah, not quite as good as the Dragon when it comes to.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, I think that must be a reference to his beautiful golden locks as far as his hair, aka his pelt. Because
do you want to be Matt Golden Boy Poirier?
Yeah, well, see, that's the problem. I don't have the golden luck, so I would be. What would I like, Matt? Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I could go for Golden Boy. I think that would be, you know, if I was I guess that's the thing is if I'm a kickboxer, I guess I've got to completely change my mindset, right?
Well, yeah, you gotta have like a cool kind of nickname. You know, the dragon's been taken, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, but what's interesting about Trimble, though, is as far as I think it was the Butcher, which is also Jesse B. Johnson. He's like the best part of that movie. I think he shows he isn't just a meathead who punches people. I think in that movie he really shows he has acting chops.
He stole it from Eric Roberts.
Yeah.
He completely stole the movie. I don't. You've seen that, right? The Butcher.
No, I haven't yet. I've been meaning to. It's on my list. So I see it's like I know like the names and Jesse B. Johnson and Robert Duvall, David. Yeah. I definitely have got to see it. I've heard about Trimble in it.
Yeah, he definitely stands out.
If you like Trimble, and if he's someone that obviously you appreciate, I really think you should check that movie out.
I don't think of Trimble that we still haven't seen Full Contact. Is that the title?
Yes. So Full Contact is that is the one that rips off. I think it rips off Blood Fist. And
and Dragonfire, right?
Right. Yeah, and in the role of the sensei character is essentially I don't know, again, not wanting to be offensive, but a slightly plump Marcus Aurelius who sits in like a plush chair and tells supposed to be young kid coming to the city, Jerry Trimble, how to fight. When you think of sauteed and wrong sauce, like the whole idea behind that one is just Full Contact. It was I don't know what was happening in that movie. I don't know what was going on there.
Well, that sounds good. I like movies like that.
I don't know if I can sit through one of these Blood Fist knockoff movies again because we watched Dragonfire and Blood Fist 2050, about a couple years ago, back to back almost.
Future Kick. Don't forget about Future Kick.
A Future Kick, yes.
We need a break. It's like.
No, I mean, Full Contact. It literally. I mean, it is because you think of the Blood Fist story, right? He goes to the Philippines, and his brother is killed, and in a martial arts tournament, so he's training to fight, and then he
Sounds familiar.
Right, and of course who is the murderer? Oh, do we know if it's the sensei or not? Whatever, but it's essentially exactly the script, only it's done on a smaller scale in L.A. with Marcus Aurelius as the sensei. Again, just kind of sitting in a couch telling Trimble how to fight, and for however paint by numbers Blood Fist was, this complete again it's just remaking it. It's just setting it in L.A. instead of the Philippines.
This seems like a role that Seagal will do soon, where he just sits on a couch, tells the people to fight.
We could remake this, call it something different. Call it instead of Full Contact, we call it full. Out for a full kill or something like that. but Seagal's the sensei who just sits the whole time. That would you could do that. You could do this movie with him as that. The only thing is, I think because the sensei is the bad guy. I think is where what happens in Blood Fist. I can't remember if we're remaking it as Blood Fist. Something has to happen where Seagal loses without losing.
Right. Blood Contact.
Blood Contact.
Well, because. Didn't something similar happen in what's the movie that's just like
Perfect Weapon?
Hitman?
The Perfect Weapon. Johnny Messner.
Not the Speakman one, the one with Seagal.
The Perfect Weapon with Johnny Messner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think Seagal has a similar kind of role in that. I mean, no, the movie's not a Blood Fist knockoff. It's more of a unofficial remake of Hitman, but so it was similar Seagal idea there.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about Messner the other day because Johnny Sullivan is a screenwriter who he wrote the one for the script for not the Recoil with Gary Daniels, but the Recoil with Steve Austin.
Stone Cold.
Stone Cold. He was saying that Johnny Messner is just a really great guy, has a really great personality. He's really fun and all that. And when you see Messner's IMDb, it's a picture of him with a monkey on his shoulder. and he's making like some goofy face. So like he's just like this character, this person has like all this charisma, and it could be like a really fun guy. And yet every movie he does, all these action movies, his character has no personality for whatever reason. Like in Perfect Weapon, he has no personality because he's like, I don't know, he's like some trained killer, right, or something. He's like,
right.
You know, or there was a Ford Got 10 or something, whatever it was called. The Dolph.
That title drives me crazy.
Right? Yeah, it's like he's got amnesia, so he has no personality. He has amnesia. Yeah. It's like, you know, heroes need to have charisma. We don't want just somebody walking around beating people. You know, yes, it's fun to see people walk around beat people, but you know, even Chuck Norris in Walker Texas Ranger, where he drove around in a pickup truck and beat up guys, like at least he had some personality when he did it.
Well, and Messner can almost be on one of our lists, right, because he kind of falls into this category, maybe because of these roles where they take away all his charisma, but he's almost a quote unquote other guy, you know. But, you know, his career is still going, so a lot could change. Like he could get a good role that emphasizes his personality.
I mean, the closest you're going to get is Running Scared, the one with Paul Walker. So
yeah, I was actually going to mention that, but Messner's role is not that big in that.
Yeah.
I think it's a decent supporting role, right? And
he's not the main hitman.
Yeah, the main hit. Oh, right.
I can only say that because of the Perfect Weapon, but yeah, you're right. It's not like it's a vehicle for him. It's more about Paul Walker and other stuff going on.
Yeah, and actually, I went to his IMDb page and realized he's actually changed his photo. He's it's now him like in an action, more of a, you know, kind of an action movie thing as opposed to the monkey. The other thing too is we talk about these actors like they're like somehow a lot younger. Messner's gonna be 50 in April, so it's like, you know,
it's like Frank Grillo. Right. You know, what about Grillo?
Yeah,
Frank Grillo.
Oh yeah, the Grillo. Yeah, he's like 65 years old.
Yeah, like
he's almost another guy, but he's also older, you know.
Right. I mean, Michael Jai White, I was like, Grillo's going to be 55 this year, or 55. I mean, Michael Jai White's one that I was always like, well, you know, he's a little bit young to put in the Hall of Fame, you know, because like, you know, where, you know, he's still got, you know, he's still, you know, going to be there. I realized that he's actually, when I put him in the Hall of Fame, he's actually older than Van Damme was when I put Van Damme in the Hall of Fame.
Wow.
Older than time flies. Was. Yeah, I mean, he was born in 1967, I think. So, you know, again, he's in his 50s. And so it's like, yeah, we think of these guys as like, you know, I think, was it Matt Mullins I saw in that movie with Don the Dragon Wilson? I'm like, oh yeah, he's a young up and comer. He's gonna be. He just turned 40 this last year. It's like,
yeah,
you know, there aren't a lot of young guys. I mean, what was Iko Uwais was born in 1983. He's gonna be 40 pretty soon. So yeah, these guys aren't that young. You know, they're all older. Even you know, we think of Seagal as in his 70s. You know, a lot of these guys are you know, getting up into their 50s for sure.
Let's see, where are we on the list here?
So I think we're up to Ty's. Wait, did you just do you're on your third, I think.
Ty?
Oh,
did we lose Ty? We might have, which is well, how about you do your next one? Because I think it might be your... No, you just did Trimble, right?
Right. And so actually my next one on my list was Genesse. So that's why I was gonna...
Okay, we already did a pretty exhaustive talk about Genesse.
Yeah.
So what's your next one after that?
So
unless there's more you wanted to say about him.
No, because I think the biggest parts that we hit, the fact that, you know, Street Justice was a big show, that, you know, Cold Harvest was a really great movie, you know, that kind of stuff really... You know, I think, you know, for whatever reason, he just didn't quite get the parts, you know, beyond those. But, you know, someone with really great action credentials that I think, you know, would have, you know, could have done more stuff for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Still there, guys?
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yes. Oh, good. You're back.
I'm back. Something weird happened. Yeah, I'm back. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that was weird. So you're talking about Genesse. I can hear you, but I couldn't speak. It was really weird.
Oh, it sounds like it sounds like a dream or something, right? Like, yeah,
exactly.
It's this nightmare. I was on a podcast and they kept asking me to talk and I couldn't respond. I could hear them.
That sounds like a nightmare that any of us could have.
Yes. Very weird. I'm going to be looking into this issue.
Yeah. You know what? My nightmares that I'm having now are that I go to stores and forget my mask. that's my dreams now. It's like, and I'm having to try to figure out how to like get out of the store without being seen without a mask on and getting in trouble or whatever. Which in real life all they would do is just tell you to leave. It's not like I saw it in Rite Aid, a guy didn't have a mask on, they just handed him one. So I don't know why I think it's so bad, but in the dream it's like kind of like those dreams people have where they're naked in a store or something like that, and they're like,
yeah, and I mean I think a lot of the times people have, I guess what are called anxiety dreams. Like, you've probably had one where like you're at school and it's a big test and you didn't study.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that. It's like, obviously in the dream, it's a lot more serious and scary than it would be in real life, but it's a dream. So obviously they're going to, it's stress, all that extra terror. But yeah, so it's like, I think that's fairly common. It's just now it's taken the form of mask wearing, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, you'll be like Roger Moore, the naked face. So
yeah. Wow, interesting reference.
Yeah.
Like perfect. Excellent. Well, yeah. So Ty, I think we were on to your number 3.
Yes, until something weird happened with the audio. But okay, so I'm back with David Bradley.
Oh,
excellent. Well, he was my 2, and actually Genesse was my 3. So we can probably
a lot of overlap.
We could definitely do a big Bradley talk here.
Well, we all know his best movie. Brett, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
Hard Justice.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Well, especially that intro. That first scene it's as we said, it's the perfect Comeuppance Reviews movie. It's like it has everything, and I'm sure you would agree, Matt. It's just such an amazingly great action set piece. It's because before, actually this kind of ties into something we were talking about, which was kind of DTV doing what Hollywood studios either won't do or can't do, and this is basically like the DTV answer to John Woo. If someone was watching Hard Target, maybe Hard Boiled and The Killer, and thought, okay, we're DTV, we're more rough and tumble, we're a little rough around the edges, let's go for that, and that's what they did, and the results are pretty outstanding.
Yeah, I was kind of getting or pulling up my my Hard Justice review because I think that one for me, I think that might be my favorite Bradley. I think it's the one, I think out of all of Bradley's stuff, like that's the one that you think of as it's, I don't know how to explain it. Like this is Hard Justice is like that one that Bradley has, that if you were looking at maybe trying to make a top 10 of the 90s, I think that's the one out of his filmography that you would have as the candidate for that.
Yeah, the number
right.
one.
No, I get what you're saying, and he's just very cool in it. He's riding his Harley. He has like his leather jacket and sunglasses, and he's just like kind of a badass, and it's pretty awesome. And so, but he plays a similar character in the cyborg cop movies, but he has a very special accoutrement that I'm sure you guys will want to talk about.
Well, you mean the fanny pack?
Yes, the fanny pack, which we've talked about in great detail. But since we're talking about Bradley, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that he wears a fanny pack in both of those movies.
Yeah. And so the first one, I think it feels like the second one was an answer to the first one. It feels like the first one he wore the fanny pack because I think they thought it was cool for his character to wear a fanny pack when he's pretending to be a tourist, and they must have just watched it after and thought this is ridiculous, because in the second one, the amount of fanny pack in the second one is obscene, where it's like it's almost like it has to be a joke, where like, I mean, the partner's wife who the partner died and the wife has something to give him, and she pulls like a Zippo out of her fanny pack. I mean, it's like everybody had fanny packs. Everybody was wearing them. It was amazing.
Right. So this whole tourist thing, there's not an excuse anymore, because at least in the second one, he's back on his home turf, but he's still wearing the fanny pack. But I believe there is a scene where he pulls his gun out of his fanny pack.
Exactly. That's the opening scene ever. The opening bus scene, right? Where
right.
Yeah, he's like, I got, but I've got nothing. I'm unarmed or whatever.
Right. Stark Raven.
Bradley, I think for me, I was thinking, because on my list, because I had them ranked, Bradley was right below Zagarino. But the interesting thing about Bradley is that he just didn't do as many movies. I think, what does he have? 17 IMDb credits. Hasn't done anything since 1997. I wondered for him if it was just like he looked at the landscape in the late 90s and just thought, you know what, I've done it. This is it. I'm only going to get these kind of parts, and I don't want to keep doing these kind of parts. And so That's it. I don't know.
Well, that's true. I mean, plus once you've been in at least one American Ninja movie, there's nowhere else to go. I mean, that's if you, well, that's the top, isn't it? I mean, if you're an aspiring DTV action star and you get to replace Dudikoff as the American Ninja, I mean, that's the top, right?
Yeah. I mean, I got to say, American Ninja 4, that would have been enough for me to maybe get out of the business and just be like, he spends the entire American Ninja 4 in a dungeon chained to like a pillar in the wall or something like that.
Yeah.
I feel like, as an actor, if I'm a David Bradley, I feel like, no, you know what? Talk to my agent, be like, if I'm doing American Ninja 4, I want it to be me and Dudikoff teaming up and taking guys out. I don't want to spend the whole
that would
thing.
Have been awesome.
Yeah, it would have been great, but they didn't deliver on that.
Yeah.
Well, that movie, Blood, is it called Blood Brothers?
Blood Warriors.
Blood Warriors. That has Zags, or who's the other guy in that?
Sure does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he and Zags did team up on that, and that's a pretty interesting movie because it involves like psychic abilities.
Right. I think that was the one because it's a Sam Furstenberg movie. I think that was the one that when that big book came out, the Sam Furstenberg book. I think that was the one that you guys got your quote in. Mine was, I think, Quicksand was the one of the Sam Furstenberg movie that he quoted. I wish I could. I'm so bad that I can't remember the name of the author of that book. But I think it was your review on Blood Warriors that he quoted in that book.
Oh, geez, I don't even think I knew that, or if I did, I forgot. So that's good to know.
That's very nice.
Yeah.
So quoting our Blood Warriors, right?
Yeah, I think we each got like one review quoted.
Cool.
And then Mitch got a ton of them. I think it was like Mitch and Vern. Marco Seidelman, that's the author's name. And the book is called Stories from the Trenches, Adventures in Making High-Octane Hollywood Movies with Canon veteran Sam Furstenberg. And the book is massive. It's like 800 pages. It's huge.
Well, that's
like,
more than War and Peace.
Right, exactly. It's like, well, and it's also because it's really tall too, so it's got like tons of pictures in it. It's a lot of stuff, and so like I was just kind of paging through it, and I noticed like Mitch had the Video Vacuum. He quotes Mitch's Video Vacuum a lot in there, and so I was like, oh, I wonder who else got quoted in there. And so yeah, I think for you guys, I think it was Blood Warriors is the one. It was either that or it was a Furstenberg movie he did with Bryan Genesse that you guys may have been quoted.
See, it all comes back around.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, clearly this book had no editing, because if they left our quote in, then I mean, clearly they're just putting anything in.
I think we weren't that kind to old Blood Warriors.
No. He didn't care if somebody wasn't kind, because he quoted Kenner from Movies in the Attic on one of them, and Kenner like completely destroyed the movie in the quote, whatever movie it was. I can't remember which one it was. But yeah, he was just looking for quotes. He was just looking for stuff that people were saying about these movies, and so yeah, I think it might have been like you were saying it was a bad movie, but he still quoted it anyway.
That's interesting.
Nice of him to do that.
Yeah.
So you got Bradley.
I mean, Bradley put in these other wacky ones, like Expect to Die. I didn't see that one, or Crisis. Just to get those wacky ones out there in the world.
Yeah. So, Expect to Die is a Jalal Murhi one.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about that one, and it's on Prime if you haven't seen it. It's kind of
it is.
One.
Okay.
There are a few issues with that one. Is one, I kind of looked at it as like a Jalal Murhi vanity piece, which I don't know if I necessarily, nowadays I think I'm a little bit not kinder to a movie like this because of of what the 2010s brought us for DTV that was like just so lackluster. I think I'm a little bit nicer to a movie like this. But one of the funny things is Evan Lurie is in it, and he kind of has to take a back seat to Murhi, which is weird because because Evan Lurie is Evan Lurie, he's a really cool guy. But the idea is it's one of those things they use computers, right, and virtual reality in the 90s. So the idea is like somebody is, it's like you're put into a video game and then you have to fight your way out. And so what happens is David Bradley is he's like the ringleader of it. He's like the designer of the computer program. And he'll say the name of the movie when the person's there. So it'll be like, like Jalal Murhi's character, I think his name was Blake or something. He's like, okay, Blake, here you are. Expect to die, and then that's what happened.
That sounds good. It kind of reminds me of that. I guess it was a grocery store, which you might remember. Expect discounts.
Oh no, I don't know if we had that here.
In Connecticut, we had it, and maybe other places, it was called expect discounts, and I'd always say you can expect discounts. It doesn't mean you're going to get them.
Was that in North Haven?
Yeah, there was one in North Haven.
Yeah. And it was Liquidators, right? What was it called? The Toy Liquidators?
No, Toy Liquidators was something else entirely.
Okay.
But what's weird about expect discounts is, I guess from what I remember, it was a grocery store. But my friend Sean, Sean, he found like these 2 pallets of like tapes, like these cassette tapes, and there was like weird stuff, like these punk albums. It's like, what's this doing at expect discounts? And he like bought them all. He has this whole story about that. So they would get weird things in there.
I'll ask him that.
Yes, but it was called expect discounts. So when I hear expect to die, that reminds me of that. But
awesome.
But Ty, we haven't seen that one, right?
No, we've seen Expect No Mercy, but not Expect to Die.
Yeah.
Which also has a floating, well, not that this one has a floating Murhai head, but that has a floating Murhai head.
Right. I was wondering if this one had this was the exploding Murhai head. It's not, right? It's the other one. It's the floating Murhai head.
Yeah, floating Murhai head is Expect to Die.
Murhai movie.
Yes.
Right.
Expect Murhai head.
Yeah, this one is like, it's, part of it is the fact that you've got Evan Laurie in it. Billy Blanks is in it, I believe, as well.
He's in Expect to Die, or he's in Expect No Mercy?
I thought he was in Expect to Die as well. He's on the cover. So you're right. No, he's not in the movie. He's just in the cover.
Lies.
It's like pulling a Fabio.
Right. Yeah, because I didn't tag Billy Blanks, but he's on the cover. It looks like maybe it's not Billy Blanks kicking it, but it looks
Michael
like
Blanks.
Yeah. No, the cover.
Could be Larry Blanks.
Yeah.
Maybe that isn't Billy Blanks. It looks like Billy Blanks from the Taibo area with the I don't even know if this scene that's on the cover even happens in the movie.
One of those.
Yeah, but it's a trip. Like it's on Prime, so it's worth checking out. Yeah,
I didn't know it was on Prime.
Yeah, it's on Prime. It's included. So it's it's not something that I would have to like for people that are listening to us right here. I don't know if I would be recommending it for everybody to get out there and see Expect to Die, but it's interesting 90s. I mean, it's later 90s, so it's when you're starting to kind of see the wave crest on that great 90s action. Late 90s stuff where it's starting to kind of the waves kind of breaking and kind of coming back.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, so this has that feel. This is not like those late PMs with like Daniels, like Recoil, that were like sort of extending the 90s a little bit further. This doesn't really extend the 90s. This is where you're like, okay, yeah, this is like kind of like, oh, computers kind of movie,
Well, I do like those. Personally, I do like those. Anything that involves the internet in the 90s or VR, which a lot of these movies dealt with, I do like that.
Yeah, then you get a kick out of this then. You get a kick out of this one.
All right, so where are we here in our list?
Am I in the last one, or
yeah? Because the funny thing is, my last ones. So my last three, my top three were Genesse, Bradley, and Zagarino. So we've already discussed those. So I don't know if you have anybody on your list that we haven't discussed yet, and then maybe we could do some honorable mentions if we wanted to.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is it's kind of like a tie between the really kind of like one-stop shop people.
Right.
Matt Hannon and
yes.
J. Roberts Jr. from the movie White Phantom. No, wait. What?
Yeah, White Phantom. Well, I mean, as we told before, that story about seeing the death fight in the video store, and it's Richard Norton. Who was that? Yeah. Of course, Richard Norton deserved that, whereas not that J. Roberts Jr. didn't, but to come across this movie White Phantom, and this guy J. Roberts Jr. is top lined on the movie. He's like, his name is, I don't know if it's above the title or on the top of the box, but they were touting this guy with like no other credits at the time. I think that's interesting, and it's one of those only in the 80s or maybe 90s phenomenon where there's a guy, he's just a man, but he's now on top heading this direct-to-video movie. And when you talk about the other guys, I do tend to think of people like that, and Matt Hannon, as silly and ridiculous as Samurai Cop is, he was the main star. I mean, so a lot of times people could be plucked from obscurity. Maybe you were a bouncer or a bodyguard, and bam, you're starring in the movie. You're not in the background, you're starring in the movie. And your name's on the box to draw people in. Oh, sorry, Tom.
Oh, no, I cut you off.
No, I was just saying
all episodes.
the people that made the people that make the box art at the time would put the name there, presumably thinking that would be enough of a draw to get someone to rent the movie or buy it.
Right.
Even though you've never heard of this person before.
Right. Yeah.
Well, our buddy from Instagram, Hillbillies_Horrors VHS, he gave us a copy of Burning Vengeance, starring Robert Pence, and that's like a one-timer. And,
well, at the time, I think he did go on to do some other things, but yeah. But that's a good example because Robert Pence, who the heck is that? But
I don't want to say thanks. Thanks to him. Oh, his name is Dave. So thanks, Dave, if you're listening. And
and we'll thank him again on our podcast. But Robert Pence, that's a good example of a kind of a plucked from obscurity guy who they made the main star of a movie, which to me is a very interesting phenomenon. Like, how do you decide to do that with no resume to speak of to rather than give you a supporting role to make you the main hero? I think that's pretty unusual. I don't think you see that too much these days.
And it's like Kurt Thomas, right? Or Mitch Gaylord.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You can be plucked from the world of gymnastics. I mean, they can get you from anywhere.
Well, I think that's what the thing with Trimble, right? Was that it was like, we were able to do something with Don the Dragon Wilson by plucking him from the ranks of kickboxing. Well, let's try to do that with Trimble. Let's try it with Apollo, Dale Apollo Cook, or some of these other ones. Let's see if we can do that with them and make something out of this. And it just, for whatever reason, it worked with Don the Dragon and it didn't with the other stars. Because Don the Dragon Wilson ended up having this great DTV career that the rest of them didn't quite have. But that was the idea.
It's Stoppers, the other ones, but the Dragon's still making movies now.
Right.
Yeah. It must be his great delivery and his raw charisma that kept people coming back.
Karate Man.
Yeah, because I was listening to the Cinema Smorgasbord podcast that Doug and Liam do. That used to be the Eric Roberts is the man, or I guess I've got the explicit tag, so I guess I can call it Eric Roberts is the fucking man. But we never use it. We never swear on this podcast. So, they were doing Vic Diaz. Is it Diaz?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's Diaz, but it could go the other way.
It could, it's another one of those ones that I don't remember hearing it on a trailer. But they were talking about Blood Fist with that one, and they were saying how Corman was doing that thing in the '90s where he was just grabbing all these kickboxers and all these martial artists and putting them in movies and putting their resumes in the movies, right? Like
I always like that.
Yeah.
So when you think of Vic Diaz, is it also Cameron Diaz?
That's what makes me think it might be Diaz. But
Well, the only one I can think of that actually is Diaz is I think it's there's a baseball player who played for the Pittsburgh Pirates in the '90s, Matt Diaz. So that's probably the only reason why. And I think I just like the way that sounds, and so now everybody who's Diaz is now Diaz. So that's probably my problem. But
it's like Lamas again, Lorenzo Lamas.
Right, Lamas. I think there was that thing where it was like, okay, let's get these guys who are martial artists and have them star in movies, but you need to have a special quality. Sometimes what they ended up discovering with Bruce Willis, right, is that it's better to take an actor and edit the film and make them look like an action star than it is to take someone with all these great action chops, but can get them to act. Not everybody could do the acting part that Seagal could pull it off. Seagal was pulling it off. Van Damme was pulling it off. Schwarzenegger, Stallone. Not everybody could, and so here's Corman who's left with all of these great martial artists, but are they really great leads? We talked about Don the Dragon Wilson's acting style. I think the fact that he took off, it shows you that some of these other ones were even worse. They had even more trouble doing the acting scenes.
Well, yeah, I mean, and plus, obviously Corman's working on a much lower budget, so he didn't have as many options.
Right.
In other words, he couldn't afford to get someone who was a great actor and a martial artist, and he made his choice. You know what I mean? He went with the action, which makes perfect sense, coming from him to emphasize the action side more than the acting side. But it comes back to that old discussion we've had before, which is, do you get an actor who can do martial arts, or do you get a martial artist who can act, and which is easier, which is harder, which is more feasible? So you have to make that choice. So obviously it makes sense that Corman would make the choice leading towards the action, because you don't watch a Corman movie for the spectacular acting. You watch it for Yeah, so it makes total sense that the acting side of that was, I don't want to say disregarded, but certainly given a back seat, because you're going to want to go with the martial artist, 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, and I mean the idea is you're supposed to have a Vic Diaz there to prop up the movie, right? Vic Diaz is the one who's supposed to, those supporting actors that people like Cirio Santiago worked with all the time. You put him in, Mike Monty. I guess I don't know if he would have been in the Corman one so much, but what's the Joe? Was it Joe Marie Avellano? Aviano. Yeah.
Nick Nicholson.
Right.
Oh, yeah, all the Philippines crew.
Yeah.
Henry Strzelkowski. And, yeah.
Right. Yeah. They prop up the movie, and so then Donald Dragon Wilson doesn't need to act as much. He can just do his action scenes, and then Vic Diaz can come in and chew up scenery as the baddie or something like that.
Yeah, so it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
I'm out of people.
Well, so a couple honorable mentions that I had. The reason why I kept them as honorable mentions was because we'd already done episodes. I think you guys did a Jeff Wincott episode. I thought he would be kind of close. He's kind of on the border of this other guys or into that Gary Daniels realm where he's had
really close because Rothrock would beat Wincott, I think.
Yeah.
So it's interesting ranking.
Yeah.
For Wincott.
Yeah,
or Loosecut.
We got to lose cut because and that was part of the thing too. Was I was thinking like, well, okay, if we talked about Wincott, we've already you've already talked about him on that episode that you did that was really great. And so it's like and I think we put him maybe a step above these guys, except that I don't know how many films that he's done beyond these guys. So he's kind of he's an interesting one. The other one though that I was thinking of that's also kind of interesting is Marcini because he would be in this other guy's list of his own choosing, right? He didn't want to make movies that these guys were making. He wanted to make his own movies.
And he definitely did.
And yes, and his movies are a world unto themselves. So if that was his goal, he definitely achieved it. But what's interesting about that though is I think a lot of these people, it's like fighting for shelf space, So there were a lot of these guys, and someone I wanted to mention was Edward Albert, who had a foray into action as well. So we were so spoiled for choice in the 80s and 90s. Not all of them can reach the tippy top, so there's going to be this sort of fighting for shelf space. So that might explain why some guys made it and some didn't as far as the upper echelon, because it's really just a simple matter of supply and demand. There was a lot of supply, and so not all of them could reach that pinnacle. So it has nothing to do with acting ability, martial arts skill, or anything like that. It's just because there were so many at the time, there was only room for so many on video store shelves and in the hearts of the viewers. So I think that's really, goes to explain some of that.
It's a great point. And distribution, Rothrock gets better distribution than Zagarino. Zagarino has missing movies that we can't see. Rothrock maybe has like one or two of those. But
so if you have like a video company like Imperial who can pretty much put videos in every video store, that's going to be a major contributing factor to people knowing you and seeing your movies. And, like if you got a Vestron video or some bigger video company behind you, yes, that's going to be a huge, huge help.
Sony or even
Corman, Sony, then,
Corman's a huge distribution.
But if but that Pioneer tape of Nothing to Lose.
Oh, no, whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes, where Don the Dragon teamed up with Andrew Dice Clay.
Oh, and Fred Williamson.
And that should have been in more stores, but I don't think Pioneer tapes really had a lot of penetration into the marketplace.
I have another Pioneer tape. Pandora Project? No. It's had Daniel Baldwin. Remember this?
Oh, no, I think that was Pandora Project.
It was?
I think so. But anyway, they didn't get a lot of distribution. And, I'm not sure how many thousands of tapes each of these companies made, but that's kind of an interesting factor in this too, is production how many copies did they decide to make less copies if it was a J. Roberts Jr. and more if it was a Cynthia Rothrock? I mean, there's these sort of hidden factors to all this, as far as the supply, what you might call the supply chain, So I mean, there's all sorts of factors as to why, what would make an other guy or not.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point too when you think about Rothrock, right? Like there's kind of the hook there, right? Where it's like, a woman who's doing this. There weren't a lot of women out there doing. I mean, but of course there were other women like Mimi Lessos.
I was about to say Mimi Lessos.
Yes, she's a really good candidate for a quote unquote other guy or other gal. And same thing with Karen Shepard.
Yeah, I could, I had thought about Mimi Lessos for this list, and actually I don't know why I left her. It's possible that I started thinking about other things and completely forgot to put her on. But,
it's understandable because her movies really didn't have any penetration into the marketplace. That I mean, not big at all.
They're really hard to find, and unfortunately, I have to say they're not that good.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of minimal action, mostly. I think what was that? Beyond Fear. What's the one we watched? Streets of Rage.
Oh, yeah. Streets of Rage.
Yeah.
Which is more like what you might call like a pro-am, like a semi-pro type of production. Like it's shot on video. You can tell they're really trying, but they need better production value.
It's just it didn't deliver, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Karen Shepard, we're talking about her. We were talking about Trimble earlier, Terminator Woman that they did together. You almost think of that more as a Trimble movie than a Karen Shepard movie. So
she's the one that's front and center on the box.
Yeah.
Right, that's true. It's about time. That's the tagline.
Yeah, I think the version that I got, the one that I rented, it didn't have either of them on the cover. I didn't get nobody on the cover.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember. I didn't own it. I think I got it from Netflix. So I first saw that one. I first saw Terminator Woman on what they would call the Monday Night Nitro action block on TNT.
Oh, wow.
So you'd watch like Monday Night Nitro, Hulk Hollywood Hogan.
Yes, Hollywood Hogan.
Right, he was the bad guy. Then he was like, too sweet. Do that whole routine. So we were in college. We would watch that, and then we would watch that Nitro action block. I think that was where I first was in. I saw Zagarino. I think was in Project Shadow Chaser. Might have been on there as well. And I didn't put him together with the early '90s lesbian fitness instructor that I was seeing.
Well, it was only a matter of time.
You're not wrong. Right. I mean, we also say he looked like Brigitte Nielsen. So I mean,
exactly. So there's that part of it. But that action block had some really great ones at that time. A lot of times they would show ones that had Roddy Piper in them because that was the idea, is that Piper was on. He was part of the WCW at that time, so you'd see him maybe wrestle or maybe like do, how they would do those scenes in between the wrestling matches where they would argue with each other or, promote other things, and he'd do that kind of thing. And then there's whatever Piper movie like Jungle Ground or something like that would be on after. But that was how I first saw Terminator Woman was in that block after 10 o'clock at night or whatever, midnight on TNT. You don't get any of that anymore. Like there's TNT is not showing any of those kind of movies ever.
That's unfortunate. They need to go back to that, like USA Up All Night.
Yeah,
or something. I think people would be happy to see those again.
Yeah,
I think so, and certainly cable. I mean, that PM was a mainstay on cable. I think a lot of people saw PM movies on Cinemax, Showtime, HBO of the day. I did.
As I always say, I want the TV guide of yesterday with the technology of today.
Right.
So,
yeah.
You could tape your Steel Frontier and your Hologram Man or your Karen Shepard.
Yeah.
And just with your awesome DVR power. So it's like.
Yeah, it's a shame because it seems like the thing now is that you want these TV channels, they either make more money by showing paid programming because they just there it is whatever
Andy Sullivan for the Flex Seal.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Domeyer, the juicer or whatever for
the Juice Man.
Right, yeah. What's the one that's like the NutriBullet or something where he breaks it down to the cellular level or something like that. Yeah, it's like I would always.
Well, that could be a movie title for him, the NutriBullet.
The NutriBullet, exactly. That would be awesome. But yeah, it used to be that they would show movies in that overnight period, and now it's like either it's paid programming or it's like Law and Order binges. I mean, there's so much Law and Order out there right now that you could have a Law and Order channel. I think they do have on Pluto. They have a Law and Order channel, but you could literally just show it like 24 hours a day. So sometimes I think it's like that or CSI. It's like these channels like USA. They'll just sort of set CSI in motion, just let it go all night, and I guess maybe they get better ratings that way. People, insomniacs would rather watch a CSI binge and have that on than watching, Vice Academy or something like that.
Because you got to be blurry-eyed and like kind of catch some sort of car chase instead of Law and Order that you can see anytime. It's like, what's going on? Oh, it's kind of fun.
A simple thing of you could show more commercials during a TV show, maybe, because a lot of TV is built around commercials, so it's probably something like that.
Dang commercials, but I do like the NutriBullet. Buy it today.
Well, don't we all? But,
there's one that I would see, like, because I remember I had a job where I was riding my bike to work, and I would have to like get up there. I had to get up early to leave in time for it. So I think I would get up at like 4:35ish in the morning, and there was this like ad for this like special cooking pot. Like there was all these cooking pots, right, that are all these different non-sticks, and it was just like this guy from New Zealand, I think it was called like Stone Dine. It was made out of like granite or something. It's like, yeah, Stone Dine it's absolutely non-stick, and I just hear this like, while I'm waking up, and it's like, I don't need any Stone Dine right now, or it's like
yeah. Well, I mean, and sometimes they would include characters.
Right.
There's that woman, I think this is pre-progressive. I think her name was Flo. She was like this older woman with this cigarette hanging out of her mouth, and she would kind of hang around the studio audience, and she'd be like a part of. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, they would, these characters, like the hosts would often be these characters too that would like goof around about the product and.
Well, like the Pine Sol lady or the Snapple lady, right?
Yeah.
Well, kind
Snapple
of because.
lady.
Yeah, she could be an action star.
She could throw a Snapple at someone, and that would hurt.
All right.
No, I think it's a shame. When we're thinking about these other guys, I think one thing that we've been able to kind of reconnect with them that's been good is that now that DVDs are kind of done too, right? That you can still have your Netflix DVD one, but a lot of these are even out of print on DVD. The fact that Prime and Tubi have a lot of them, and then YouTube seems to have the ones that Prime and Tubi don't have. People can kind of dig in and kind of get a sense more of I mean, we were talking about Zagarino films and David Bradley films, and they a lot of times when I'm looking up on IMDb, I'm seeing, watch on Prime, included with Prime. So, now it's kind of like, okay, it's a shame that you don't have the TNT, because I think there is something different about going to the streaming site and just picking something than it is to just be like, okay, I'm watching Monday Night Nitro on TNT. What's the movie that just comes on after without me changing the channel, and just sort of seeing it that way as opposed to picking it from a thumbnail and being like, oh, well, that looks like it could be good.
Yeah, it's a whole different experience. I mean, that's why we always have this nostalgia for the video store, because, going to a video store is a lot different from picking out something online. Yeah. So it's kind of the same phenomenon.
You just scroll and scroll, and you know what? I lost interest. I'm done.
Right. Just add them to your queue and then forget about it. That's what
exactly.
Yeah, by the time you've done that, 90 minutes has gone by, and that's the same time it would take to watch a movie.
Exactly. I actually spent hours going through Tubi looking for movies when I could have just watched the movie in that time. That's a good point.
Right. So don't forget to watch the way TNT modern technology has gotten us.
That's right. TNT is on Tubi still. I've got to start watching those episodes.
I showed Brett the opening, and it's really funny. Like, he's a champion. He's here for you.
Yeah, Action TV was something. Like, now there's Action TV. It's on like CBS, I guess, or whatever. And it's like, I saw they're trying to bring back the Equalizer. It's like they're remaking ones that were big in the 80s. But there's nothing like that, kind of like that 90s Action TV.
I know. A lot of it was syndicated. But the closest thing maybe is Strike Back.
Yeah, that's the closest you're going to get.
Yeah.
So, love Strike Back because it's an awesome name. So you can stop right there.
Right.
And the first season, it really delivers the goods.
Yeah.
And then it falls off. But the first season's good.
Yeah. Yeah. So. It's Action TV is kind of its own thing, but it's, I think, we think of it as kind of a nostalgia thing, and part of it is nostalgia for the 90s and the late 80s into the 90s, but also part of it is that stuff was just good. It was just kind of like, it was just fun. It was just made to be fun. And we don't always get a lot of made to be fun nowadays, and I think that's something we're missing a bit of.
We just want to have fun, man.
Yeah.
It's just like...
But do you think maybe that could be a future podcast episode, which is Action TV?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, we could that could be quite an episode, like for us, because we'd have a lot to go through there. But there would be, some really great ones that we could talk about. That it's funny. I have to go through. I think it's Andrew Babcock who is on.
Yeah.
He's
a cool guy.
Is big on action TV, and if his Instagram, he's always getting something new in the mail and showing. Like I think he had Street Justice recently. Like he'd picked that one up somewhere.
You got Air America, which I just got. Martial Law.
Yeah.
Nash Bridges.
Yeah, I just got Nash Bridges. Yeah.
Did you? Oh, that was a good one with Don Johnson and Cheech Marin. I remember the episode where their partners from their other works came on the episode. So it was like Tubbs was on and Chong was on.
Oh yeah, that's a funny idea.
Yeah. That was like. I think that's might be something.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say I think that could be that sort of that accompaniment to action movies. The action TV of that time was always really great.
Can't agree.
Right. Well, again, it goes to the fact, kind of what I was saying before about how we were so spoiled back then. And TV, movies, there's in video stores and on TV and syndication. I mean, there was no shortage of great material.
Full of riches. I think there's some funny story about Nash Bridges. Like Don Johnson was like making an episode. It's like, get me the hell out of here. I'm sick of this. It's like
well, after like 400 episodes of pretty much the exact same thing,
Yeah, it's like, what am I doing with my life? I'm making Nash Bridges. It's like,
right.
You can find that. There's a story.
I have to see that because I mean, Miami Vice, people joke about the outfits and stuff, but it was groundbreaking at that time, and it was doing stuff that TV wasn't doing at that time. So Don Johnson could say, like, yeah, I'm doing things, I'm covering issues, we're shooting scenes, we're doing things in a way that TV isn't being done. Whereas Nash Bridges was pretty paint by numbers.
Yeah, if we do that episode, I'll have to save my thoughts about Miami Vice because it's probably one of my favorite shows, and
me too.
There's plenty to say about it. So
we'll save that for next episode.
Yeah, well, maybe this is a good time for us to wrap this one up. We're closing in on that hour and a half mark. So before we wrap up though, wow.
Owen C. Wilson comes back once again. He had to get that in there.
Well, if you say anybody who says "wow" now, I have to do it. It's like some sort of reaction.
We could do the Owen Wilson podcast. The Owen Wilson podcast, I guess, would be like the best buddy movies that he did with Ben Stiller. Would that be the podcast?
Or maybe Jackie Chan or
Shanghai Noon, Shanghai Nights, and I don't know, Yumi and Dupree.
Right, that's it. He was the buddy film guy. I guess like he did movies with his brother, with Luke Wilson. It's like if you needed a buddy film, let's call up. I think Conan O'Brien made a joke about that, about him doing buddy movies, and so they had a list of movies that they wanted to do. One of them was with Lindsay Lohan, and it was called Owen and Lohan, and it showed them eating a big long sub together.
I'm surprised that wasn't me.
That's very Conan. Yeah. But people should watch No Escape. That movie, because not the Leota one, but the other one, which featured him, and it's a really great movie, and it's sort of fits the category because there is action in it, but it's more of like a suspense thriller type thing.
Yeah, there's some edge of your seat moments for sure.
Yeah, there's definitely edge of your seat moments. So if you think he's just a goofball that says, "Wow, this might change your mind."
That's a good point. Because I always want to watch him for the wow moments because I just get such a kick out of that kind of stuff. Where he's like, I think it was in Zoolander where he's pretending to be a dumb model, and he's like, yeah, I really love Sting. I mean, I don't really know any of his music, but I just admire the fact that he does music, and it's like those kind of lines are just so great.
And be behind enemy lines also.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm working with Gene Hackman. Wow.
Maybe I get an Oscar too. Wow.
We can give our plugs.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so let's see here. We got the website, comeuppance.net, and we have our own podcast. Right, Brett?
Oh, yes, the Comeuppance Reviews podcast. So go on iTunes or any podcatcher and you'll find it. And Ty's on a bunch of the social media sites.
Yep. Ty Comeuppance is on the Twitter, and then we're on Facebook under the website name, and then my Instagram is Ty Action Rocks, and I posted Double Blast today, so that dates it a bit. Dale Paulo Cook.
Yeah, speaking of the Dolph, right? Another kickboxer or martial artist.
Another guy, you might say.
He's another guy. He could almost get his own show. Blood Ring.
I'm sure we will do a Dale Apollo Cook show one day.
Yeah.
Those are my plugs.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, maybe that's one thing, whether it's you guys on social or me on social, people listen to this episode and you have some ideas about like, what you think of like what we were talking, if you want, if you think some of these, deserve a full show, or if you think it's other people that you think should have a full show. I mean, we could always pivot. But it kind of felt like, I'm realizing we did kind of do some exhaustive conversations on like Zagarino and those guys. So I don't know if an hour and a half is we could do, but I mean, a top 5 Zagarino films. I'm realizing we probably could do a top 5 Zagarino films.
I definitely think so.
Yeah.
That's a fun idea.
I think we already discussed what probably our top Bradley movie would be, but we probably still could do a top 5 with him as well. So some of these guys have enough of a movie, just in discussing it, that I think we could do full episodes on them.
Yeah, I agree.
Sounds good.
And I'm sure we will, especially as we start to run out of ideas for podcasts.
Exactly. Just a quick plugs for me. DTVconnoisseur.blogspot.com. That's the one-stop shop for everything. The thing to keep in mind is if you're doing it on mobile, you might have to click down at the bottom where it says view web version, so you get all the links, but that's where you get the links to social, for Instagram, Twitter, all of that stuff. And then of course my novel Chad and Accounting is out now. You can go get that on Amazon, either in paperback or Kindle. But thanks everybody for listening, and thank you guys again for coming on. This is another great episode.
Anytime.
Anytime. It was a lot of fun.
All right, excellent. Well, thanks everybody, and talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Hear that? That's the sound of a patient whose health data is protected from a cyber attack. And that's the sound of a financial system that's digitally secured from bad actors. Right now, there's an invisible war being fought on a digital battlefield that impacts what we do every day. That's why at Peraton, we do the can't be done to help protect the vital systems we rely on. Because if we don't, the alternative is unimaginable. Peraton.